Hey America, the founders used the term the general welfare in the preamble to the U.S. Constitution as if it was something to promote. What did they mean by that? In an article written by Martha F. Davis, professor of law, Northeastern University, School of Law, she states that when the founders used the phrase promote the general welfare, they were indicating that such issues as poverty, housing, food, and other economic and social welfare issues facing the citizenry were of central concern to the framers. Her article can be found in the American Constitution Society, dated September 15th, 2011. Oh boy, we got to talk about it. Professor Davis is conflating the new definition with that of the original definition of the term welfare. The original definition of welfare is the state of doing well, especially in respect to good fortune, happiness, or prosperity. Under the U.S. Constitution, our government and we the people were expected to promote the general welfare. It is still our job to do so. However, welfare has a new meaning: government aid in the form of money or necessities for those in need, as propagated by Professor Davis. Why would we promote government dependency? Who would benefit? How does something immoral, when done privately, become moral when it's done collectively? Furthermore, does legality establish morality? Slavery was legal. Apartheid was legal. Stalinist, Nazi, Maoist purges were legal. Clearly, the fact of legality does not justify these crimes. Legality alone cannot be the talisman of moral people. Additionally, no matter how worthy the cause, it is robbery, theft, and injustice to confiscate the property of one person and give it to another to whom it does not belong, or it was not earned. Walter E. Williams, Ph.D. How could Martha F. Davis, professor of law, have made such an error? She is simply a progressive product of her time. And here is a completely different perspective. I am for doing good to the poor, but I think the best way of doing good to the poor is not making them easy in poverty, but leaving or driving them out of it. That was Benjamin Franklin. Please note that the 2005 national budget spent $7 trillion. Revenues were $5.2 trillion, meaning we had to borrow $1.8 trillion. Interest costs are now over $1 trillion a year, with a total of $39 trillion in our national debt. President Trump and the Republicans in the House and Senate are trying to use a scalpel to trim our federal budget, but it needs a meat cleaver to chop, slice, and dice. More about this in future videos, because this is the crux of the matter. Our world has gotten more complicated, which is not an excuse. The underlying principles remain the same. We either live within our means or we become the Weimar Republic. If you have not read Ben Franklin's essay on the price of corn and management of the poor, you really should. He points out that the more you do for the poor, the less they do for themselves and become poorer. The less that is done for the poor, the more they do for themselves and become richer. This is the fourth year epiphany that the Pilgrims discovered. Another video for another day. In my search for a publisher, I came across Encounter Books and The Necessity of Citizen Action by Tony Woodleaf, January 14th, 2022. He is 100% correct. The preamble to the U.S. Constitution, where all these ideals are mentioned, was mentioned not as what the government must do for us, but what we the people of the United States are going to do for ourselves. Part of holding our government accountable is controlling our two senators through our state legislature and holding our state legislators accountable through our votes. Well, at least that was the idea behind Article 1, Section 3, Paragraph 3.1. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The founders felt that the states needed to have input into the federal legislation for 2 reasons: the Supremacy Clause and the Necessary and Proper Clause of the U.S. Constitution. And furthermore, in Article 2, Section 2, Paragraph 2.2, they're talking about the President, shall have power by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, in other words, the states, to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and shall nominate, and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States. As a result of the 17th Amendment, U.S. senators are now hustlers for votes, just like the members of the U.S. House of Representatives, as well as each state legislator. Money is the mother's milk of politics and has replaced campaigning through debates, questions, and discussions on policy and public interest with multimedia dissemination of demagoguery consisting of lies, innuendo, trickery, distortions, playing to the feelings and emotions of their proposed constituents without answering any of the difficult questions of governance, like what happens when we run out of other people's money, which we already have. This is the result of every politician being elected by popular vote. More about this in a future video. Of note, it is the state legislatures that ratified the 17th Amendment to make their life easier, one less thing to do. If you like this video, learned something, and hopefully it made you think about our federal and state governments, if it made you think about our national debt and what needs to be done to fix America, please like, subscribe, and share this video with all your social media contacts. If you have any questions about this, you can write me a message from my website at repeal-17.com.
Just hold on.